The quest for justice has been central to human societies for millennia, yet defining what constitutes a just society remains one of the most challenging questions in philosophy and political theory. John Rawls, a 20th century American philosopher, offered a compelling framework to address this question through his concept of the veil of ignorance. This thought experiment aims to remove personal biases and encourage fairness in defining justice. By imagining a scenario where individuals create societal rules without knowing their future place within that society, Rawls provides a powerful tool for constructing a just society. Defining justice is inherently complicated because our personal experiences and societal positions often influence our perceptions of fairness. For instance, someone born into wealth might view certain economic inequalities as justifiable or even necessary, while someone from a less privileged background might see the same inequalities as deeply unjust. These subjective perspectives can lead to biased judgments, making it difficult to agree on what constitutes justice on a societal level. Rawls recognized this problem and sought to address it through a more objective approach. His theory, as presented in his seminal work, A Theory of Justice, introduces the veil of ignorance as a way to strip away personal biases and consider justice from a neutral standpoint. The veil of ignorance is one of the most thought-provoking and influential ideas in modern political philosophy. It serves as a powerful tool for envisioning a just society by stripping away personal biases that typically influence our judgments about fairness and justice. Rawls asks us to imagine a scenario where we are tasked with designing the foundational principles of society, but with one crucial condition. We must do so without knowing any of the personal characteristics that define us: our race, gender, social status, wealth, or even our talents and abilities. This hypothetical veil of ignorance ensures that we are completely unaware of where we will end up once these societal rules are in place. By removing knowledge of our own identities and future positions, the veil of ignorance forces us to adopt a more impartial perspective. Without the ability to predict whether we will be privileged or disadvantaged, our natural self-interest is neutralized. As a result, we are more likely to choose principles that promote fairness and protect the rights of all individuals, knowing that we could end up in any position within society. This perspective encourages the design of systems that do not favor any particular group over another, ensuring that the basic needs and rights of every individual are respected. Moreover, the veil of ignorance highlights the importance of considering the least advantaged members of society. Since there is a possibility that we could find ourselves in a marginalized or vulnerable position, it is in our rational interest to advocate for social and economic arrangements that provide for the welfare of the most disadvantaged. This thought experiment thus serves as a compelling argument for the creation of a society where inequalities are minimized and justice is accessible to all, regardless of one's starting point in life. John Rawls' concept of the veil of ignorance leads to the articulation of two fundamental principles of justice that are essential for creating a fair society. The first of these is the principle of equal basic liberties. This principle asserts that every individual is entitled to the most extensive set of basic liberties that can be granted without infringing on the liberties of others. These basic liberties include essential rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the right to vote, and the right to a fair trial. These rights are considered fundamental because they provide the foundation for individuals to lead autonomous and dignified lives. Under the veil of ignorance, where no one knows their future place in society, it becomes crucial to ensure that these liberties are universally protected. By securing these rights for everyone, society guarantees that no matter what position one might find themselves in, they can still exercise these fundamental freedoms that are critical to their well-being and self-respect. The second principle derived from the veil of ignorance is known as the difference principle. This principle acknowledges that some degree of social and economic inequality is inevitable and perhaps even beneficial, as it can serve as an incentive for innovation, hard work, and economic efficiency. However, Rawls argues that such inequalities are only justified if they are arranged in a way that benefits the least advantaged members of society. This means that societal structures should be designed so that any inequalities ultimately contribute to improving the situation of those who are worst off. From behind the veil of ignorance, individuals would likely endorse this principle because it ensures that, regardless of where they end up in the social hierarchy, they would have access to opportunities for improvement and a standard of living that upholds their dignity. The difference principle thus promotes a form of justice that balances the benefits of inequality with a commitment to the welfare of the least privileged. At the core of John Rawls's theory is the radical notion that fairness should be the cornerstone of justice. Unlike traditional views that often justify inequalities based on merit or utility, Rawls argues that a just society is one where fairness is paramount. He posits that individuals should be willing to accept the basic structure of society regardless of their circumstances, whether they are privileged or disadvantaged. This notion of fairness is not merely an abstract ideal, it is a practical criterion for evaluating the justice of societal structures. The veil of ignorance is crucial in this context because it strips away personal biases, allowing individuals to assess fairness from an impartial standpoint. When individuals are asked to imagine themselves behind the veil of ignorance, unaware of their future status or characteristics, they are compelled to consider the principles that would govern society if they were to end up in the least favorable position. This thought experiment challenges people to think beyond their immediate self-interest and consider the broader implications of inequality and injustice. Would someone willingly choose to live in a society with significant inequalities if there was a real possibility of being on the losing end? Most likely, the answer would be no. The veil of ignorance, therefore, acts as a moral lens through which we can critically examine and design societal structures that prioritize fairness. By doing so, Rawls encourages us to create a society where justice is not merely a privilege of the fortunate, but a guarantee for all. The veil of ignorance, while a theoretical construct, has profound implications for addressing contemporary social justice issues. It serves as a powerful tool for evaluating the fairness of laws, policies, and institutions by encouraging decision-makers to consider the impacts of their choices on all members of society, particularly the most vulnerable. By adopting the perspective of the veil of ignorance, policymakers can transcend personal biases and focus on creating structures that promote equity and justice. Take, for example, the ongoing debates about healthcare. From behind the veil of ignorance, individuals are unaware of their health status or economic circumstances. This perspective would likely lead to the advocacy for a healthcare system that guarantees universal access, ensuring that everyone, regardless of their situation, receives the care they need. The uncertainty of one's position in society compels individuals to design policies that prioritize the common good, rather than favoring specific groups. Similarly, in the realm of education, the veil of ignorance would encourage the creation of a system that provides equal opportunities for all children, regardless of their socioeconomic background. Knowing that they could be born into any situation, individuals would support policies that ensure quality education for every student, recognizing that access to education is fundamental to achieving personal and societal success. The veil of ignorance thus offers a robust framework for evaluating and improving the fairness of modern societal institutions, pushing us toward a more just and equitable world. While John Rawls' theory of justice and the concept of the veil of ignorance have been widely influential, they have also attracted significant criticism. One of the primary critiques is that the veil of ignorance is too idealistic and abstract to be effectively applied in the real world. Critics argue that the hypothetical scenario it presents, a situation where individuals can completely detach themselves from their personal identities and biases, is implausible. In reality, it is difficult, if not impossible, for people to fully step outside of their own experiences and interests when making decisions about justice. Additionally, some argue that Rawls's theory assumes a level of rationality and moral reasoning that may not be realistic for all individuals. The idea that people would naturally choose principles of fairness when they are uncertain about their future position in society relies on the assumption that individuals are capable of making such impartial decisions. However, human behavior is often driven by self-interest, emotions, and irrational factors, which can cloud judgment even in hypothetical scenarios. Another criticism is that Rawls' emphasis on fairness as the sole criterion for justice overlooks other important factors that might also contribute to a just society. For example, some critics argue that efficiency, economic growth, or the preservation of cultural traditions should also be considered when designing societal structures. They contend that an exclusive focus on fairness could lead to policies that, while equitable, might not be the most efficient or beneficial for society as a whole. Despite these criticisms, the veil of ignorance remains a powerful and thought-provoking tool for challenging conventional ideas about justice. It invites us to reconsider the principles that should guide the structure of society, particularly in terms of how they affect the most vulnerable members. Even with its limitations, Rawls's theory continues to spark important discussions about the nature of justice and the role of fairness in creating a just society. John Rawls' concept of the veil of ignorance offers a unique approach to thinking about justice. By encouraging individuals to design a society without knowledge of their future position within it, Rawls's thought experiment promotes fairness and equality as the foundation of a just society. While not without its challenges, the veil of ignorance provides a valuable framework for considering the moral and ethical principles that should guide our social structures. In a world marked by deep inequalities and injustices, Rawls's vision of a just society remains a powerful and inspiring ideal.